Sixers fans, what's up, guys? I just want to make a real quick video talking about the summer league observations so far, especially Game 3 against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Chet Holmgren did not play, but the Sixers won the game by a single point. It was a nail biter. It was a really, really good game, up and down, basically the entire time. Second half was pretty impressive by a couple of guys. I want to sit down. I want to talk about it. I want to talk about a few people in particular. I want to talk about Jaden Springer, Trevin Queen, Isaiah Joe, guys like that. What's that going to mean for the Sixers rotation going forward? And, what I think of the guys so far here. And let's get into the video. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, join the family, join the community. We have a lot going on, man. The Summer League's always fun to watch. Free agency is still going on. Harden deal. When's it going to happen? A lot going on, guys. So make sure you subscribe. Let's get into it. You know, everyone that's been here with me along the ride of my whole YouTube tenure, I should say, knows I am a very, very big Isaiah Joe guy. And today is the prime example as to why I'm a huge Isaiah Joe guy. I didn't even want to start it off with Isaiah Joe because, he is the reason why we won this game. He had 19 points, he had 4 threes, he had 4 steals, and the offense ran through him. He was phenomenal. He hit the game-winning three-pointer, which to me was an N1 that they just did not call. And Isaiah Joe is a rotational guy. I'm tired of trying to find a way to make a point of him trying to be a rotational guy. And right now he seems like he's probably the odd man out off of this team. But games like this in the Summer League have to solidify his rotational minutes for the real 76ers squad come season. Because this man has one of the purest, wettest jump shots I've ever seen from an NBA player. And it looks like he's bulked up a little bit. It looks like he's become more physical a little bit, which is so heavily needed. And his facilitating game has become quite impressive over this 3-game span. I really, really like seeing his dribble drive package right now and the ability to kick out to an open shooter. He's looked really, really good. This Sixers offense over these 3 games, or I would like to say especially this second half of the Game 3 against the Thunder, really, really succeeded when it was running through Isaiah Joe, and that means a lot for a guy of Isaiah Joe's caliber. I just think as a second-round draft pick, he has been a steal that we have just not utilized at all, let alone correctly. And when we have utilized him, it just hasn't really been consistent enough. And partially, that's Isaiah Joe's fault. He hasn't come in and shown a consistent jump shot in order to solidify some minutes for the Sixers squad. But on the other hand, it's Doc Rivers. It's really, really hard for a shooter in the NBA at that level to come in and become consistent right away, because as a shooter, it's tough, man. You're going to be hot and cold, and especially when your coach is on the sideline, watching every single move you make and being overcritical on missed shots and missed plays. You only get 2-3 minute run times at a time, if that at all, and it's really, really difficult to not be aware and be conscientious of your coach when you're a guy like that. And that kills consistency. And I think it's obvious as to why Isaiah Joe has been so good in the Summer League. It's because he's going out there and he's willing to make mistakes and he's willing to learn, but he's getting consistent playing time. He's allowed to make mistakes. He's allowed to miss shots. He's allowed to work through his game when it's not necessarily working right off of the jump. He really, really seemed to just pick up his game when we needed it the most tonight. And I just need Doc Rivers to be able to give him more run time, especially on games where it may not be the closest, whether we're losing by 30 or winning by 30. Isaiah Joe needs to be playing a lot of minutes, man, because I really, really believe that Isaiah Joe, especially with Embiid there as a pick and roller, I just feel like there is a seriously viable option there from the 3-point line on a second round steal that we just have not been able to utilize over the last 2 years. And it's frustrating. It's really, really frustrating because I believe Isaiah Joe is that guy. I believe Isaiah Joe is a rotational dude for a playoff caliber team. I don't think he's going to be a 6th man. I don't think he's the 7th man, but he is close enough to be an 8-9 man, I think, when you give him regular minutes. And that's what frustrates me, that he just hasn't really been given an opportunity. And then he comes into this Summer League right now and he has been balling, man. His shot is lights out. He shoots so quickly. And that's something we need, man. We need a guy who can stand around the perimeter and catch and shoot in a tenth of a second. with Embiid there, with Harden there, with Maxey there, we need guys who can just be able to catch and shoot the basketball as quick as possible. And this isn't the first time Isaiah Joe has shown flashes in the summer league. Last year, he was just as good, man. So it's not like this is just a fluke or something that can't be sustained. This is Isaiah Joe. He just needs to be given an opportunity. He needs to be given a chance to be able to go out there with the real five guys and put up shots, because it doesn't really matter your competition. A shooter is a shooter, and the ball is going to go in. I love Isaiah Joe, and I'm proud of the improvement he's made on the offensive end. He looks stronger with the ball. He looks like he's a better dribbler. He looks like he's making much better passes, and he's slowing the game down for himself, which is so huge for a development of a young guy. You need to be able to slow the ball down. You need to be able to slow the game down entirely for yourself. I love Paul Reed. Paul Reed's going to be the guy I'm going to talk about next, I guess, since it's just transitionally fluid into that. I'm not even speaking English anymore. But Paul Reed is a guy who needs to slow the game down. And that's so difficult for Paul Reed, because Paul Reed is literally an energy guy. He's going to come in and fly around for, 8 minutes, 9 minutes of a regular game. And I think his next step is being able to slow the game down when it's important to. You can maintain that high energy. You can maintain, that crazy high motor that he has while slowing the game down. And it just seems to me that he makes a lot of mistakes that just cannot be made at times, and it's going to cut his playing time. But again, I love Paul Reed. I think he has solidified himself probably as the backup center for the Sixers team, and he's exactly what we need at that position. His shot is decent from the mid-range three-pointers. I'm probably not very confident in him putting up a lot of them at all. But at least he has the willingness to shoot, and he has the willingness to learn and grow and get better. And I just think Paul Reed's going to be a guy that the Sixers could really, really use for a couple of years down the line now, because I just think, especially as a backup center, man, to come in and out-rebound other teams and just play so aggressively hard on both ends of the court at all times, it's really, really going to come up clutch for the Sixers. And a big thing I saw that, especially tonight, Paul Reed was he only had 2 fouls, and to be able to play high level defense and be extremely high in motor and only pick up 2 fouls, that's his biggest concern. So I'm extremely excited to see Paul Reed slowing the game down on that end defensively, but offensively with the ball in his hands, I really do believe he just needs to relax. He just needs to chill out. He needs to relax, and he needs to let the game come to him more, because offensively he is very, 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 very raw, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think for his development, he just needs to take a breath and let the game come to him a little bit more and not force anything, because when he tries to force things is when turnovers are going to come, and they can change the momentum of a game at any point. Jaden Springer, man, is a guy who I like. I really, really like Jaden Springer. Last year, it wasn't that I wasn't thrilled with the pick, because I liked the idea of Jaden Springer. I mean, he's like 13 years old, but I just thought it was an interesting move that I probably would not have made given his age and where he's really at when it comes to development and being NBA ready. But over the course of a year, I've seen a lot of G League games, and I've seen Jaden Springer play a decent amount. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm an expert on Jaden Springer, but I would really, really like to say that I love his energy as well. Defensively, he is a guy. Like, he is a legitimate defensive player, and that's huge. I think he could come in on this Sixers team now and be a pretty solid on-ball defender. And his athleticism and his vertical and his ability to stay with defenders regardless of their height is very, very impressive. He has a knack for the ball that's just, it's really, really hard to teach if you can teach it at all. I mean, Jaden Springer's block yesterday or 2 days ago was just ridiculous, like just genuinely ridiculous. His on-ball defense tonight was great, but he also showed signs offensively, letting the offense run through him a little bit, and he put up like 7 of the first 9 points or something like that. And Springer just played really well. I think if his shot develops to a point where he can shoot off of the dribble a little bit, he's going to be a rotational guy. I just don't think he's there yet offensively to be able to really solidify minutes for a caliber, a hoping NBA Finals contending team. But that doesn't mean that I don't like what I see out of Jaden Springer. I think that Springer has developed into a pretty nice young player who has a ceiling that's much higher than I think a lot of people realize. He's a little undersized, but he is very, very strong with the ball in his hands. His handle is relatively pretty tight, and I really, really like watching Springer kind of play with no problem. I love the summer league because it allows these young guys to really, really go out there and be the guy. And it's who is going to be the guy. Tonight, Isaiah Joe was the guy, as he should, because he is arguably the best guy on the court tonight. And he really played like it, man. Isaiah Joe's catch and 3-point shot is just ridiculous. It's genuinely ridiculous. It's the most natural, beautiful, quick released shot that I've seen out of a Sixers dude since JJ. And we love that, man. It's something that we need to hold on to. And I'm afraid that the Sixers are going to make a bad mistake that they're going to regret down the line of cutting Isaiah Joe for this year's team. And, I'm not really sure about it. But Jaden Springer is a guy who the Sixers are going to hold on to because he has promise. I don't ever think he's going to be an all-star level player. I don't really think he's going to be a starting level player for the Sixers team at some point, but I think he's going to be good enough to come off the bench and give you really, really solid minutes and dependable minutes that you're going to get from him. And that's huge, man. Like that's what rounds out the bench. And that's what, NBA championship teams have, are guys that round out the bench and are consistent and reliable, So there's going to be a level of reliability where I think Jane Springer is going to be able to bring at some point, but I just don't think he's there yet. And that, again, is not a bad thing because he's literally a teenager. I want to talk about Trevin Queen a little bit. I see it. I see what there is in Trevin Queen, but I don't think he's ready to be a rotational dude for the Sixers. I love his athleticism. I love his ability to knock down, catch and shoot 3-pointers, but I don't think he is willing enough to put up shots as much as I think he should. And I don't really love his dribble drive game. I think he makes at least tonight, he made some really, really sloppy passes because he forced himself in a position where he had to pick up his dribble and make a decision. And the decision he made was not the correct one. He had some pretty sloppy turnovers just in general tonight. And I don't know if that changes as his role changes for the Sixers. I think maybe he could be more of a baseline catch and shoot 3-point type of guy who runs the baseline and can catch alley-oops. I think on the rebounding glass, he's probably going to be okay if we can have him as one of the crash guys, as I know the Sixers love having. I think there's something there with Trevin, but I just don't think he's really, really going to be a minutes guy, a rotational guy for this Sixers team. And I don't really necessarily think that's a bad thing because I think that he's going to be decent. But a part of me just is a little underwhelmed at the level that Queen has been playing against the level of the other guys in the competition. It's just not NBA competition. And it's very, very obvious. I mean, you see the games go by and guys are getting, noticeably tired, which you don't really see as much in the real NBA. And a lot of sloppy mistakes occur, and especially in fast breaks. And you just don't see a lot of that stuff like that. Justin Champagnie is not a guy for me. I don't think he's very good. Maybe I'm being overcritical on a summer league game, which may very well be true, but I'm not a big fan of Champagnie. I didn't watch the second game, so I literally am saying all of this from game 1 and game 3, but I don't love Champagnie. Maybe he could bring something on the glass. I mean, I guess that's the hope. Maybe he can learn to hit a spot up 3-pointer. He has the size, he has the athleticism for the most part, but maybe I haven't seen enough. I definitely haven't seen enough of Justin Champagnie. I haven't watched enough basketball of Justin Champagnie to really make an observation where I'm proud of. But for the most part, I think a lot of this is good news, but I don't want us to get ahead of ourselves to think that any of these guys are really, really ready to be a rotational piece. I think Paul Reed is going to be a pretty solid, dependable rotational guy once he begins to slow the game down for himself and not foul as much as he has in the past. But I think Isaiah Joe is a guy who we need to demand Isaiah Joe to get minutes because it's games like this where he's hitting a huge shot, which means so much for a guy who is fighting for every minute he'll ever see in his career. And I really think he deserves to be given an opportunity where he can go out there and play basketball freely without having to look back at his coach to see if he's going to be taken out or not. But that, for the most part, is my video. I hope you guys enjoyed. 15 minutes almost on the dot. Until next time, guys. Peace.